All right. Hi, everyone. Did everyone have a good lunch? I had to kind of half my portion because I was like, I have to present, so I have to not be sleepy at all. All right. Well, I'm very excited to be here and talk about product messaging. I've had two people ask me what product messaging is, so we should definitely explain that. And let's get right into it. So before I start talking, I'll quickly and briefly describe my background. Currently, I am a senior product manager at a tech company here in Chicago. I have about 11 years of experience between marketing and product development. I have a passion for women in tech, so more women in tech, woo, and also women empowerment. And I also take on some of my own consulting clients to help them strategize for product marketing and marketing strategy. So today we'll cover, sorry. So today we'll cover why I chose product marketing, what product messaging is, the power of and benefit of product messaging, crafting a product messaging, and also frameworks and metrics. So why did I choose product messaging? I've worn many hats within marketing and product management, and product messaging is the most exciting for me because, especially in tech, because things change so fast. Technology is always changing. We're adding more and more features, and product messaging basically brings all of that together. It basically assesses, did we build what we intended to build, and are our customers resonating with what we built? So it all kind of boils down to, is this product working or it's not working? Do the users understand what the product is and what it's not? So here's a very technical definition of what product messaging is, if you want to take a read, but we'll definitely simplify what this is. And then let's humanize this a little bit. Product messaging is basically communicating your user, the value of your product to your user and making sure that they understand the benefit of your product so they can actually take an action to use your product. When it comes to tech, we all know that tech is complex. It has a sophisticated jargon, and basically what product messaging does, it's the magic behind taking the functionality of your product and humanizing it so that the user understand it. And before you know it, your product messaging is the heart and soul of your product identity. If you do your messaging correctly, your user should know exactly what your product is, what it does, and why they should care about your product. Let's review some of the other benefits of product messaging. So product messaging also simplifies the complexity. Again, tech is very intricate, very jargon heavy. So what the users can benefit from product messaging is really understanding what your product is all about. Messaging also communicates innovation. So think about all the organizations that spend thousands, if not millions of dollars into technology and innovation to bring the latest and greatest to its customers. And messaging can help you do that. Messaging also helps you understand where you are on the competitive landscape. It actually calls out your competitive edge into the market, what differentiates your product from its users. It also celebrates development. We know that product can sometimes take years and months to build based on research, based on what the market needs is, based on what the market needs are. And imagine if people didn't even know your product existed or what the benefit is. It also builds trust and credibility. So it really communicates the reliability and the security of your product and ongoing trust with your users. And also it communicates long-term success. So with consistent messaging about your product, it can build brand loyalty and a message for your intended audience of what your product actually stands for. So now let's start about curating product messaging. When we're creating product messaging, we should always talk about product positioning. And here's why. Product positioning is, here's a very textbook definition of product positioning, but basically I'll simplify it to saying that product positioning sets the base of your product. It understands who your audience is, what the current landscape is, and how you want to differentiate your product. So without positioning, you really don't know how you want to message your product. So what does positioning mean? Again, it means identifying your target audience. Who are they? Where do they live? What do they like? So the demographics, the psychographics, the firmographics if you're a B2B. Understanding the industry. Who are the industry players? Who's in your market? Who are your competitors? What are they looking to build? Also, what products are currently in the market? What features do they have? What problems are currently being solved? Where are the gaps? And then taking all of that into consideration, you come up with your unique value proposition. And this differentiates of who you are into the market. And taking all of that and your user research, you come up with a consistent messaging for your product. So once you have your product messaging, product positioning aligned, you have clarity and direction of where you want to go with your product, and you know who exactly you want to be in the market. You also know how you want to differentiate your product and what differentiates your product. And also, once you understand your positioning in the market, you can use that and consistently build that message. So as you can see, without positioning, there is no messaging. Positioning is typically an internal exercise that most companies do to understand who they are and who they want to be. And then once they understand that, they take that into words and visuals and convey the positioning into advertisements or whatever your product, however your product wants to represent itself. So let's look at the anatomy of product messaging. When it comes to your product messaging, your messaging should always cover what your unique value proposition is. It should be clear and concise. It should have a component of storytelling, especially for tech products. Human beings are wired to relating to stories, and to add the storytelling component, they can feel part of the process. Always focus on the benefits of your products and not the features. Users don't care about how the features are. They only care about how is that feature going to benefit them. And then lastly, emotionally connect with your audience. You want your audience to feel like they can relate to your product. So emotionally connect in your messaging. And there are some other ground rules of messaging as well. So when it comes to messaging, your insights will be driven based on who your audience is and what channels they're on. So your channel, your audience will drive your messaging. Always set goal and purpose for your messaging. Why do you have a specific message? What is it supposed to accomplish? Is it to gain sales? Is it to build awareness? Is it to upgrade to a new platform? Always have goals and purpose behind your messaging. And you also internally want to review and gain approval of your messaging. This is especially helpful by talking to your sales team. If your company has a customer success team, implementation team, you want to learn the lingo and the jargon of your customers so that you can make your messaging more relatable. You also want to always make sure that you're testing and setting metrics for your messaging. Is it working? Is it not working? Why is it not working? And then lastly, do you need to iterate? If your messaging is not working, chances are you probably need to iterate your messaging. Now let's talk about assessing the effectiveness of your messaging strategy. You want to see if your messaging was clear, persuasive. Do the audience remember your product? You want to see if your messaging is actually driving results. Is it actually building the sign up? Does it align with your goals that you had initially set? Does it need to be refined? If it's not working, let's sit and refine your messaging. And then, are you on the right channels? Say you have a really compelling messaging, but you may not be on the right channel, so you may need to revisit that. Lastly, what is your return on investment? Depending on where your messaging is, it could be a billboard, it could be a banner within your application or your website. It takes dev effort or marketing budget to actually have your messaging out there. So you want to make sure that you are getting the return on your investment for your product messaging. So this is a general product messaging framework. There are many frameworks out there, but most of them always have these components. So you always want to obviously list out your product, the channel that you're choosing to use, and your target audience. When it comes to your target audience, you want to filter down to one persona. For example, you may be targeting a project management company, but maybe there's different messaging for the CEO versus an actually product manager. Always list out your value proposition. What makes your product stand out compared to its competitors? You also want to list out customer challenges. This is where your market research comes in. What are their current challenges? What are they currently using? Where is the gap? And how your product comes in. Next, you want to list out your product positioning. Based on your positioning, what does your product promise to its intended audience? Always keep that in mind. Then list out the features that your product has and how they work. Lastly, you want to call out user benefits. What's the benefit of using your product? And last is an optional, but very valuable when you're creating content. So this again roots back to talking to your sales, your customer success teams. What are the lingos that your customers are using? What is the market saying about your product or service? And there are several ways of measuring product messaging. It could be through website and email analytics. You could be tracking conversion rates. You could have feedback form based on who your audience is. You could create multiple messaging and conduct A/B testing to see which one is resonating with your customers. You could look at sales data. You could also interview your customers, send out surveys. You could also do heat maps and clicking using tools like Pendo, and also understanding the user journey. At what point are they actually proceeding with a call to action or dropping? And then again, doing qualitative analysis, like conducting focus groups. So a quick recap, messaging is all about communicating your product's value to its intended customer. Messaging is also a collaborative effort. You want to make sure that you're talking to customers, your sales team, and everyone, and make sure that messaging that you've crafted actually will resonate in the market. Positioning must come before messaging. Like I said, there is no messaging without positioning. And the content of your messaging depends on who your audience is, what channels they're on, and what benefit are they looking to gain from your product. And always, always, always measure and assess the effectiveness of your message and be open to iterating your messaging if it doesn't work. And short but sweet, that was the end of my presentation, but I want to close off with this quote by Jay Abraham. He says, "Sell the benefit, not the product or the company. People buy results, not features." Thank you.
Does anybody have questions, or have you applied messaging successfully, not so successfully?
Thanks. So I have a question because we work at McDonald's, but as like product managers, product like communications, product messaging, like that just gets a blurry line because we have like our internal and external comms teams, we have marketing. So like for you, like how does that all like play together? And so I don't know.
Crafts the messaging?
Exactly.
So I would say it is a collaborative effort. Messaging typically comes from the marketing team, but a good company should always collaborate with the product manager because they are the true owners of the product or the experience that they're trying to build. And you also want to make sure that you're not misrepresenting a product in your messaging. So be open and close to the marketing teams, sales teams, so it's a collaborative effort.
Hi. My question is kind of about the storytelling aspect of more of the internal piece, because a big part, we are both with McDonald's, and a big part of my work is trying to get out the product vision internally, to have that buy-in, to then be able to get something out into our customers. But getting buy-in internally is a big part of what I work to do. So what is your take on that? Can you talk a little bit more about the storytelling aspect to try and buy the stakeholders internally?
Sure. So I think when it comes to, I'm assuming these are internal stakeholders, and the experience that you're trying to build, I would try to connect with that stakeholder maybe one-on-one, understand what their goals and missions are and how your product can actually help them. And start by storytelling, like how your product and through your messaging and storytelling can make their life easier. Because finance has a different goal versus marketing, but a product may touch both, but from a different perspective. So I would try to get one-on-one time with one specific stakeholder at a time, understand what their problems are, what they're looking to solve, and how your product can come in to get the buy-in. Thank you.
I was wondering if you or anyone in the room had experience in B2B products where in B2B products, right, you're selling to both the user and maybe a C-level. How do you validate the message? We have much more greater access to the users than maybe the C-levels. Do you have a suggestion on how to validate your message with that audience who's essentially the buyer, besides that they bought? Is there other ways to?
Are you talking about the C-level internally that needs to be sold on the messaging?
Correct.
I would definitely loop in, depending on your organization.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt to clarify. The C-level at the company that's buying our product.
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
That's why I interrupted. Thank you.
Yeah, no. That's when your user persona comes in. People that are buying your product is basically paying for the product.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to first build partnership with the user of the product, get their buy-in, and have them help you describe the benefit that they will gain from buying your product. And you want to communicate how the daily users of the product, how that's going to solve their needs and how that's going to impact maybe its speed or intelligence, for example, how that's going to make their life easier, how that's going to probably increase sales or engagement. So you want to get the buy-in from the actual user of the product, partner with them, and then actually talk to the C-level suite.
Thank you.
Depending on how big the client is, sometimes the procurement department can be an advocate for you too. Depends where you fall on like competitive assets and price, but I have seen procurement go to bat for certain vendors given their ease of use, how they stack up against certain criteria and pricing structures when it's not necessarily the cheapest option. And procurement can also give you a better insight into like how people think about purchasing decisions. So there's like who's actually going to use, who's going to recommend the purchase or not, and who's the C-level. So just thinking about how big an organization might be.
Thank you. So A/B testing comes in handy when you've identified a target audience, and I would actually split that into two sections. So for example, if your messaging displays within an application, I would beta test with one messaging with XYZ amount of users, and then the other part of the messaging with other set of users, and see if they actually buy into the call to action. So whether it's downloading a brochure or if it's booking a demo call, I would actually split that and assess which one's working better. A/B testing usually comes in beta phases before it actually goes live into general public.
Anybody have examples of success stories or things that have worked in their companies, whether it's business consumers internally? No? Kajal, do you have any success stories, things that have worked well?
I can share a few. So what I've noticed is that if your persona is a high-level executive, CEO, what really helps in your messaging is providing stats, increase sales by XYZ percentage, or decrease the effort to building XYZ. So numbering always helps in your messaging, but that again depends on who the persona is. And that's mostly successful with high-level executives because they're concerned about either time or budget or sales.
Anything else? Other questions? Okay, Kajal, thank you very much. I appreciate it.